You're listening to the Cashology Podcast by FNBO, a place dedicated to helping you become more financially savvy every day. It's a little like school, but your only homework is living your best financial life. I'm your host, Justin, and class is now in session.
Having a baby can be one of the most exciting and anxious times in your life. Exciting because you're growing your family and bringing a new life into the world. Anxious because parenthood brings with it a lot of unknowns. One unknown that often gets overlooked: how will having a baby impact your family financially? So let's talk about that today and see if we can relieve at least some of the anxiety for prospective parents. Welcome and thanks for listening to the Cashology Podcast, hosted by your guide on the path to financial savvy, Justin Ahrens. If you don't know me, let me tell you that I'm not the best at long-term planning. I generally think in terms of what I'm saving for this month or over the next 3 months. I'm not the best at thinking long-term, just at all. And like I always say, if you're bad at something, surround yourself with the people that are smarter than you, and that's what we did for this topic. In this episode, we bring on Lisa Scheve. Lisa has nearly 20 years of experience at FNBO and currently serves as a director overseeing risk and compliance in FNBO's individual banking segment. Lisa brings her background and insight as she helps educate me in how to prepare financially for having a baby. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you haven't already, take a moment to like and subscribe and give us any feedback on topics that you'd like to hear. I hope you enjoy. Lisa, I know that you've been at the bank for like almost 20 years probably, and I know you're a director in kind of the individual segment. So can you just talk about what you do?
Sure. Yes, I will be at the bank for 20 years in June, and I'm in the individual customer segment. I'm the director of core banking risk management. So that is the risk management oversight of our branch banking within First National Bank.
Got it. So what exactly is risk management, if you don't mind my asking?
Sure. So we have oversight and monitoring of all of the different controls that we use to mitigate risk in the bank as far as branch banking goes. So think of all the things that you have to do for regulatory reasons to protect our customers and to protect the bank. My team makes sure that we have those processes and procedures in place and that they're effective in mitigating any risks that may present themselves to the banking industry.
Very cool. So I don't want to say having a child is a risk, but there are definitely some risky things that kind of come with having a child. And so some of that is kind of dealing with finances. So how can prospective parents financially prepare for having a baby? Where should they start?
That's a great question. And I don't think that it's possible to overthink this enough because it's just such a big life change. But I like to break that into kind of two different parts. The first would be planning for before the baby arrives. And then the second would be things that you need to plan for after the baby arrives. So both stages can be really tough and complicated. And I think the main thing to do first is to sit down with your partner and get on the same page. Talk about finances, insurance, money, anything else that you think is important. And it can feel like you're getting really clinical about having the baby, almost like you're looking at your situation from the outside. But an outside perspective can be really good because the inside perspective is where all the emotions and the anxieties lie. So it's a good thing to really plan ahead of time.
Totally agree. And, this topic comes up really timely, at least for me, because these are conversations my wife and I are starting to have. So we're kind of getting used to the idea or getting acclimated to the idea of, let's think about having kids. And there's definitely a lot of financial components that we've thought about, especially things that we've talked about are saving for future education. And I think kind of what you said, an outside perspective is we kind of have a lot of friends right now that are kind of in a similar life stage, and some have actually have had their first child. And so we've really leaned into those conversations of what did you guys do? What did you prepare for? What's it currently like? So I think that's excellent advice of finding an outside perspective. And so let's hone in a little bit and talk about before the baby arrives. what are the financial considerations for prospective parents?
So prospective parents should probably start by putting together a new household budget, thinking about out-of-pocket medical costs. And I think the main thing with this is to really understand your health insurance coverage, and don't be afraid to ask questions, because that can cover everything from prenatal care to labor and delivery. And labor and delivery itself can range anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. So you really want to know whether or not your insurance will cover everything, or if there will be deductibles and co-pays for you to take care of. You need to know what your expenses will be so you can plan for them. So exactly how much will that cost you at the end of everything? And then you also need to know about maternity and or paternity leave. So does your company provide paid leave, and how much leave do you get? Will you lose any income during those first few months? And try to project what that budget will look like during that time.
Totally agree. And for the listeners that don't know, I work in human resources. I do data analytics, so it's a whole different ballgame of human resources. But my background is in leaves of absence. It's kind of where I started my HR career. And if I could give advice to the listeners, it's definitely lean into your HR departments if your company's large enough to have one. I know at my time doing that here at the bank at FNBO, we were very adamant about making sure for maternity, paternity leaves, our employees had all the information that they needed to know. We wanted to make sure they were in a good place. They understood the benefits. They understood the time off that was protected. Here in the United States, we have the Family Medicare Leave Act. And so depending on employer size, a lot of things kind of factor into that. But really ensuring employees know how much time off they get, how they would be compensated during that time. So very important. So advice to the listeners, lean into your HR departments wherever, you have your benefits at, and really kind of understand how things will work to set you up for success and be prepared.
That's something that I found really helpful when I was planning for my maternity leave is I reached out to my human resources partner, and they actually helped me to create a whole calendar of my leave time and even, what my paychecks would look like during that time. So it was very, very helpful.
Yeah. So definitely lean into that. That's kind of a reason the department's there. So hopefully everyone's experience can be just like that. But like I know at FNBO, that's something, at least that leave team, that's something they really pride themselves on, is that hand-holding experience all the way through from kind of start to finish of that leave. So what you talked about there, Lisa, was just the budget through delivery to return to work. Is that kind of where prospective parents should only focus?
Right, through delivery and the return to work, but also think about the baby's first year, because that's going to be the biggest lifestyle change at that point. So ideally from about 6 months before delivery and then through the baby's first birthday is really what I would try to plan out as much as possible. For example, find out and plan for anticipated childcare costs. That will be a huge part of where your budget goes. You've got to choose childcare as far as a provider goes, and you want to arrange that well ahead of time. For an infant, childcare can range from $180 to $230 a week or higher. And that's according to Child Care Aware of America. So then you think about that. And then on top of that, you've got other recurring costs like diapers, formula, doctor visits, clothing. There's always something that'll pop up that you weren't really expecting. And that's just kind of part of the adventure.
Yeah, the list goes on. And man, childcare is huge. That's something me and my wife talk about a lot. Is if you've listened to the podcast, I know there are other like financial saving goals, and this has become one of ours to be thinking about is, all right, we got to estimate how much do we think childcare is going to be. And now that's like the new savings goal of start putting money away. So we're prepared for that because, yeah, we're both working adults and got to keep that going.
Great idea to plan ahead and to save for that, because it really is a good chunk of your budget. And it's so important just to have good, consistent, and reliable childcare.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've talked about kind of savings for the first year. So that's kind of focusing on the household budget. So I'm going to guess as prospective parents, we're going to have to be creating a whole new budget spreadsheet, right?
Right. So a spreadsheet that includes all of your usual sources of income and how it will be impacted month to month. You should include all of your usual expenses like housing, cars, utilities, groceries, gas, all of it. And all the savings too, because in spite of everything, you want to keep paying yourself first and stashing money into savings, even if it's a decreased amount for a while. Don't lose sight of that. Then once you've got that new budget together, you're probably going to want to find ways to cut expenses, at least for a while until you're comfortable. And it's just how things work when you're having a baby. So eating more meals at home, cutting the cord on cable television or monthly subscriptions that really aren't necessary are a pretty good way to start. And those things will add up very quickly. Also consider garage sales for baby clothes and some other basics. Friends hand things down to other friends. There are really good consignment sales around town as well. Those are great places that you can get a lot of things for really small amounts of money. And that makes a big dent in helping to save and plan and prepare.
Oh, for sure.
And then after the baby arrives, your time becomes less predictable. So plan now while you have time and you can put your attention on it so that you don't have to worry about it later.
Yeah. So if you're planning now, I think the message to listeners is if you don't already know your budget, you should really figure that out, get a good understanding, because once baby arrives, you'll have to do some refining and just be more cognizant of where you're spending your money. So Lisa, what should we do after baby arrives?
After the baby arrives, while you're still at the hospital, make sure that you order a birth certificate and a social security number for your baby. And that is probably the main thing to not forget because there's just so much going on at that time. And then within 30 days of delivery, make sure you add your child to your health insurance coverage as well. You don't want to forget that. That's very important. Consider, too, a juvenile term life insurance policy. No one likes to think about potential tragedies, but it's important to be prepared, and that's just one of the things you can do to help be prepared.
Oh, absolutely.
Most parents carry those policies until their children are out of the house, so at least 18 years. And know that a life event like having a child lets you revisit all of your insurance policies at work. So it's like a brand new open enrollment period. And again, a point in time when you want to really lean into your HR department and connect with those people so that if your employer offers things like life and disability insurance, you've given that a look over. You've added any beneficiaries to any existing life policies. You've had a chance to purchase new or additional life insurance. Make sure you sign up for short-term or long-term disability insurance, which really protects a percentage of your income if you're unable to work. And then look into options ahead of time and see what your employer allows. And again, this is just about planning for the unexpected because it's not just you anymore that you have to worry about. It's you and your child as well.
Totally agree. I think even me and my wife, we've talked a lot about all the things that we could be doing right now. While it's just us two, we don't have a child, but I think this conversation has really opened up for me all the other things you have to be. I'm not much of a forward thinker. I'm kind of an in the moment kind of guy. And I think this has really opened up. You got to be thinking ahead for the unexpected. And it's kind of like an emergency savings in a way, and just expanding that idea out to caring for a new little baby person that you'll bring into the world. So, once you have a baby, it's tough to think of everything. That's for sure.
That's right. It is tough to think of everything, and it's tough to maintain discipline around money, particularly when you're coming from a place where it's just you and your partner, and you don't have somebody else that's completely relying on you for their quality of life and all the basic necessities. So that's why it's just best to plan ahead and to keep saving at whatever level you can. And then make sure you keep money flowing into your retirement accounts too. Don't stop contributing to that. And look into opening a tax-deductible college fund, maybe a 529 plan for your child. You don't have to rush, but the sooner you start, the more time your money has to grow. And it's just all part of the planning.
Absolutely. So Lisa, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and joining the podcast and sharing your knowledge to help our listeners be a little bit smarter when it comes to being prepared financially.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Podcasts are for informational purposes only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. When making decisions about your financial situation, consult a financial professional for advice. Podcasts are not regularly updated and information may become outdated. Deposit products are offered by First National Bank of Omaha, member FDIC. Investment products are not FDIC insured, not a deposit or other obligation of the bank, not insured by any federal government agency, not guaranteed by the bank, may lose value. The Cashology Podcast, copyright First National Bank of Omaha.